See, the thing is that we all wait for the right time. We all wait to be prepared enough to do something, the right time to be educated enough or strong enough or confident enough. And really, the best outcomes come from taking action even when we don't fully feel prepared or educated enough. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. I'm so happy that you're here with me today. I don't know about you, but as this pandemic evolves, I am seeing all kinds of changes that are rapidly happening. And what I'm really seeing and have experienced myself are people struggling with overwhelm. We are running our businesses, caring for our children while doing so. We're homeschooling or supporting virtual distance learning, adapting to new marketing or possibly a whole new business model entirely, or whatever deems appropriate in that moment based on what's happening in the world. We're worried about our family and friends. We're uncertain. And yes, we're still feeling optimistic at times, right? And maybe even and more so than not, but there's still these challenges going on. And we're getting things done that we wouldn't do normally. Maybe it's cleaning out the garage or whatever those things are. And we're making changes in our family life or business life and relationships that probably could have changed a long time ago, but we now have the impetus to do it today. So whatever it is, if some of those things or any of those things relate to you, it's a lot. And I'm noticing that a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed, and I'm totally putting myself in that category. The hard facts are this: we actually give ourselves much more struggle than we need to. And I know this is true for me, and I would bet that some of you are raising your hand saying, yeah, definitely me too. And based on a lot of what I'm seeing lately, I feel like there's a huge reason for the struggle happening more to my high achieving comrades. So it's like you're really wanting to achieve more. And so therefore you're struggling more. And the biggest thing that I'm seeing, this huge reason, is decision making. I have seen genius marketers and entrepreneurs with different personalities. Some are very quick to make decisions because they want to keep the needle moving and they constantly want something happening. And a lot of people will be like, it's so hard for me to make a decision. It's like pulling teeth to get them to make a decision. And there's a lot of back and forth on deciding. And while they might end up making a good choice eventually, or either learn from not making a great one, one thing is clear to me: being indecisive causes way more stress and struggle. And I don't think that you can just become a strong decision maker overnight. I'm not sure, maybe you can, but I do know that it's way better to keep things moving and make decisions more quickly or within a certain time frame than to stall because of the fear or what might happen if you make a wrong choice. And truthfully, I know this because of my own experience. This year presented many of us with a lot of choices. It especially did for me. And we all had to quickly decide how we were going to do things, and whether that was within your family or whether it had to do with your kids, what kind of schooling they would do, or who might need to take on an extra role at your business. Or maybe it was, what new service should we sell? Or how do we need to pivot here? Or do we really want to spend this much on advertising? Or do we need to spend more? We were all forced to make decisions, and we were forced to make them quickly. And if we didn't, a lot of people got stifled and just kind of stayed put because they didn't know how to react so quickly. And I've learned a lot this year, and I learned a lot in the past as well, on the power of making decisions with brevity. There is such power when you can make decisions in a faster way than to stall. But more than that, I learned what questions should be asked so that I could feel confident with my decision. So maybe you want to know what those are, and that's what I'm talking about today. So if you feel that you've been struggling with making decisions, you're feeling overwhelmed because there's so many things you want to do, but you can't decide on which you should be doing, then you're at the right place at the right time. This episode is for you. So here it goes. The first thing that I learned when it came to making decisions was to create a deadline. I had to enforce a deadline on making that decision. And for me, it would be within a very short amount of time. It wasn't like, okay, within the next year, you have to decide on this. No, it was like, okay, by next week, you will know X, Y, and Z, and you will follow through with it. In doing this, I also had to accept that I might make a wrong decision and realize that that was still better than waiting too long to take action. And that's the biggest fear is, but what if I make the wrong choice? You might, you just might. But what if you didn't look at it as being right or wrong? And I'll get into that in a minute. Because the next thing that was probably the hardest for me, actually, let me just shift a second. If you've done a personality test, and some of you maybe have, I've talked about Colby on this test before and how we've tested our team members when they come onto the team to see, what type of things are their strengths and where they really thrive. You might already know a little bit about yourself when it comes to being somebody who acts quickly or maybe somebody who takes their sweet time. Maybe you are a quick start. If you're familiar with Colby, there's a trait called quick start, meaning that you take action right away. You have an idea and you're just like, let's do it. And maybe your follow through isn't totally strong. So you have to outsource it to somebody else to actually get that idea done. But you know that you're going to take action right away. And you might not really vet it out entirely because you trust that making that move is going to lead you into some direction, good or bad. It's going to at least lead you somewhere. And you just take it. You just take the risk. Or you could be a fact finder or a researcher, which is like me. Now, I'm somebody who comes up with a lot of ideas. I want to get started, but I've got to do my research on it. And I do enjoy taking time to research and learning about something before I commit. But that being said, I have evolved since being an entrepreneur to where I don't like to do too much research. I like to do just enough to get myself educated and knowing enough to feel good about making that decision. And knowing that it's okay if it doesn't seem to be the right one. If hindsight 2020, you go, oh shoot, maybe I should have gone the other direction. I'm okay with knowing that might happen because I'm not okay with being stalled and not making a decision. So this is where I will set a deadline to how long I get to do this fact finding and enjoy the time doing it. It might be, depending on what the decision is that I have to make, it might be a day, it might be an hour, it might be a week. I feel that we have so much information at hands right now. And with a good Google search, you can actually find a ton of information in a short period of time to help you with the decision that you're trying to make. And again, it might be wrong, but that is okay. Try not to put the pressure on yourself that the decision or any decision you make is going to make or break you or your business. It's super awesome when you make a choice and something good happens really quickly and it's like, great, that was the right choice. Things are falling into place. That's awesome. And yes, it totally is a bummer if some things that aren't so great begin to happen because of a decision you made. But I think that most of us listening, if I know you who are listening, you already know that sometimes you do make mistakes. You do make the wrong decisions. You don't choose the way you wish you would have, but you've seen that it is in those decisions that actually led you to something better. It actually taught you a lesson that you really needed to learn that you might not have learned otherwise. So either way, it's taking you into a direction that you need to go in. What's far worse than not moving is just being stuck. And then you're just stifled and you don't even know what to do. And then you look back and go, gosh, I could have at least been way farther ahead had I made some type of a decision. So instead of beating yourself up if something didn't go the way you wanted it to go, just take responsibility for it, learn from it, and move on. Honestly, the things that have kept me moving forward this year is making decisions with brevity and giving myself a deadline to decide on something without an attachment to whether it had to be great and awesome or if it turned out to be a failure. So when you look at it on less of a serious note, it actually makes it much easier to make that decision. And while some things were not such a great choice, my team and I just moved on from it. Okay, well, that didn't work. Did we lose a little bit of money there? Yes, but guess what it brought us to? It brought us to this thing that totally did make us money. So it's okay. And look at all these things that we did take action on that did work. And these that didn't, we learned from it. And that's it. I did this actually when deciding on whether to homeschool my kids or not. I allowed myself half a day to really look into homeschooling versus virtual distance learning with the public schools in her district. And I also gave the kids some time to come up with a decision. So we're all going to think about it. This is the amount of time we have, and we're going to make a decision. And ultimately, we decided to homeschool. But here's the thing. It doesn't mean we have to do it forever. We're deciding on it. We're committing to it for this amount of time. And we might decide to keep with it depending on how it all goes. And we might decide to do something else if it doesn't seem to be a fit. Right now, it's working out great, but we don't know what's going to happen. And so we're open to switching that up if needed, but it's not like something that's going to make or break us. And if you start thinking of the decisions and the things that pop up, if you think of it more like, hey, should I wear blue jeans or shorts today? You might later wish you'd worn shorts because it was such a hot day. Fine. It's just a little bit of a disappointment, but it's not an end to anything. It's just, now I have to be uncomfortable. So what if you thought of the decisions you had to make in your business and life decisions that way? It's okay if it doesn't turn out perfect, but we're just going to keep moving forward. Better to move forward than to stay stuck. I know I've already said that a billion times, but it's so true. And I have absolutely learned that the hard way because there are things that I wish I would have just taken some type of action on that thing because I'd be so much farther ahead. Even if I had to take steps back, at least I was moving. Okay. So I know that in my business, I've been presented with certain advertising and marketing opportunities. And many of us have, especially during this time of a pandemic and COVID, people are saying, hey, try this instead. This is what you need to be doing. And there have been times this year, there's been times throughout my whole business where I've had to make decisions to place budget for one type of ad versus another, or for one type of medium versus another, if I couldn't do all. And so I had to decide, okay, let's test this out instead. And some have worked out really well very quickly and some did not. And so all that meant was, okay, we've got to switch it up. But I know that some of you are thinking, well, I can't afford to do something like that. And I totally get that. But what I've really learned is that if I had waited and got myself overwhelmed with going through massive amounts of thinking and analyzing, I probably wouldn't have done anything. And then I would have learned nothing except that nothing comes when you're stalled. Nothing does come when you're stalled. It's true. And you do get more overwhelmed because you're thinking so much and you're feeling disappointed that you're not actually moving forward with something. So I'm still human. And yes, I've totally beat myself up when I don't like a choice that I've made. Like I've definitely beaten myself up because it hurts when you fail. But I've also learned really well that accepting it and then moving forward brings me to a better outcome way faster than wallowing in it. So the advice here is when you make decisions, with brevity, with your amount of time to research and make that decision. If it doesn't go the way that you hoped for, please don't wallow in it, because that will just lead to being stalled. Back in my early 20s, when I was just out of college, I'd taken a commercial acting class. It was so much fun, learned a ton about advertising and marketing and copy, actually. It was fantastic. But I remember in that class, there was this gal who week after week kept telling us how she was preparing to audition for an agent. She wasn't quite ready to go out there and get an agent. So every week she would report back to us how she was signing up for something new to develop her confidence, or a stylist to help her develop her wardrobe, or something else she was taking to learn what her true talents were and essence were, and how she should interview, and how she should network, and what her headshot should be like, and what her resume should be like. I mean, it was this long list of preparation that went on and on and on. And you could tell that she really loved learning, which was great. I love learning too. It is fabulous. But there was this moment when our teacher, who happened to be a casting director, said to her, "So when are you going to just go out and try, and just go out and do it?" And at that point, we all kind of were like, "Oh my gosh, that's like an aha moment right there." See, the thing is that we all wait for the right time. We all wait to be prepared enough to do something, the right time to be educated enough or strong enough or confident enough. And really, the best outcomes come from taking action, even when we don't fully feel prepared or educated enough. I mean, if you're a parent, you know that you're never fully prepared to be a parent. And then as you're a parent, you realize you were never prepared to have a toddler. You were never prepared to have a teenager. And if you have adult children, you're like, I was not prepared to plan a wedding or be a grandparent. There's all of these things. When you're an entrepreneur, you realize you were never fully prepared to do bookkeeping or marketing or this. You're constantly learning as you go. And that learning comes from the decisions that you're making. Life is just a constant university of lesson after lesson after lesson. So what if you just started saying that you need to make a decision? Stop worrying about the kind of decision it's going to be, and stop looking at it as a bad or good thing. I've had friends that want to start businesses, and the amount of time that they have spent on deciding what their logo should be or what platform they should blog on is insane. They've literally been talking about it for years. And when I say years, I mean years. They just have not taken action. And I love them dearly, but I know that there is no way I could be as productive as I am with my team or my business if I were to add on every single piece of action we need to take and make it into a long, full-blown decision. It would just be so hard. And so I have to empower them to make decisions, because if I were to do research on all of this kind of stuff, I would get nowhere. And this isn't to say that I don't ask for advice or, look to the right people when I do my fact finding or research. I absolutely will do all of those things, but I definitely have to have a deadline to it and know that I have to make decisions by a certain time. My husband and I are in the middle of remodeling a house. And while we want everything to be perfect and just the way that we want it and look like this picture or that picture, we would never move forward if we obsessed over the paint colors or the different shades of white or the different shades of gray, or whether we want the wood bar stools or the metal ones or the leather ones. We tell each other that this is the day that we decide on these items and we make that decision. Here's the time we have. And this goes in the shopping cart, and that's what we're getting. And we'll learn to love it. We might look back and go, maybe we should have gone with this. That probably could absolutely happen. But it's not the end of the world if we didn't do it exactly right, because you start to learn to accept and go, okay, well, here's how I'm going to move forward with this decision. And guess what? If you want to change something, you can change it. It ain't that deep. I've said this before, actually, and I'll say this to my team if they get upset that something went wrong with a project. I will always say it ain't that deep. And I'm stealing that from a Peloton instructor. It ain't that deep. If you can't reach the output you're trying to reach, or if you didn't burn as many calories or whatever, days are going to be different. You're going to be stronger one day and not the next. You're going to make a good decision one day or a really awesome decision that totally catapulted you one day. And you might make a decision that holds you back one day. But guess what? It ain't that deep. That is life, and it is okay. When people ask me, Summer, how have you gotten so much done? You were talking about this, and I can't believe you're already launching it. How have you moved the needle that quickly in your business? And I will honestly say it's because I put the deadlines to making decisions. That's the biggest takeaway for today. I put deadlines into making decisions, because the times that I haven't, it's been like, hey, remember Summer, you were talking about doing this thing or that thing. Whatever happened with that? Do you know why nothing happened with it? Because I didn't make decisions, because I couldn't take action, because I was so worried and stifled by the what if of failure. And had I just kept going, oh my gosh, I would have been so much farther ahead. Probably made mistakes, but that's part of it. That is so much a big part of it. The longer you take in making decisions, the longer your list becomes. So remember that overwhelm that I was talking about in the beginning? Do you know why that happens? It's because we get so overwhelmed with the decisions that we need to make and the action that we need to take. Instead of just taking it, we keep adding more to the list. Well, maybe I need to research this, or maybe I need to do this item or that item. And those things might not actually move the needle at all. There's always things that keep coming up day to day, and you keep adding it to the list and adding it to the list, and then taking so much time and taking action on it that nothing happens, except your brain gets more full of overwhelm and tasks and things that you need to do. The faster that you can take action on these items, the less overwhelm you will have in your life. So that is my message for today. It's short, it's sweet. I hope it was sweet, but it really is powerful. And it's been so powerful for me. And believe me, I still get stuck. There are still times like, no, this is such a big decision. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be the end of the world. So put a deadline to making that decision. Give yourself the proper amount of time to research, to fact find, to call, phone a friend, whatever you need to do, and then just take action. Just take action. If something goes wrong, then you know to shift in how you make a decision on that same thing the next time. It's okay. It ain't that deep. And with that, I'm wishing you all the very, very best as you navigate these very interesting times. And I hope that this episode provided just enough of a quick but powerful impact to relieve any type of overwhelm you may be experiencing. Thanks again, and go kick some butt. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't already done so, would you do me a favor and go subscribe and review this podcast? My goal is to continue to deliver you content that will really move the revenue needle in your business and give you up-to-date content on anything else that can dramatically help your business. You can also find us at thedrawshop.com/podcast, where you can comment on the podcast or contact us directly with any issues you'd like me to address. Thanks again. I really, really appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next time.